while I was on that journey, I absolutely thought it was impossible. This industry almost makes it, achievements and working in our industry are almost set up as an impossible, like, giant mountain that you can never climb. We also have this huge responsibility as an essential element of cinema, without which cinema doesn't exist. I'm Boris Mojsovski. I'm a cinematographer and a director. I started as a writer-director, and my journey kind of led me to cinematography because of my photography background, because I was a photographer. And I often say that I'm the fake cinematographer. I'm not really a real cinematographer, because I came into it because I knew a lot of people who, basically my friends, who I would just shoot their movie after doing my movie, and they would do stuff for me, and like we just kind of grew together into roles. And I then kind of came back to cinematography once I started doing television, because I thought that television cinematography could be my day job, and writing and directing movies could be my real job that I do in between. Well, that doesn't really work. Because television became kind of the dominant and prominent medium in our industry, but also in my life, because it's, very consuming, and you're there all the time. So I figured, okay, well, I made a bit of a mistake here, because now I'm a full-time cinematographer. I'm not really a writer anymore, because I don't have time to write, and I'm not a director because I don't have time to direct or develop projects. So I then started, I pursued directing television and shooting television. So I would start a show as a DP, do some episodes, and then direct a few episodes, and then, from season to season, that would be the pattern. That's where I'm at now, which I really enjoy, because they're very different jobs, and yet they have similarities. I came to Canada as a refugee in the late 90s, and I came as a young person who did not know much about the world, didn't speak English, but I went through this traumatic experience. But I found, when I came here, I found a community of people who came from similar backgrounds, but from all around the world. So, at that time, most of the crises in the world were most of my friends were from Sri Lanka, Burundi, and former Yugoslavia, because that's where the wars were at the time of the crisis. So refugees came to Canada from there, and we together progressed into getting these little jobs and all these things. And so there was a sense of community of people who came from varied backgrounds. Once I kind of tried to progress into filmmaking, it was a little bit of a different story, because for me, there was no sense of community yet, because I didn't know anybody. And that took a while, but what helped me is I went back to school. I went to York University, and that's where I met a lot of people who are my friends to this day, who kind of helped me adjust as a newcomer in Canada, but also helped me find my bearings and figure out how to start living, or as a filmmaker. And that journey is not easy. It's a hard journey, but it's a hard journey for everybody. But the moment of the filmmaking community becoming a community for me, where I felt, surrounded by people, like-minded people, etc. That's when you kind of feel, and that's the same for everyone, when you feel that you have a place, and you can have a place as, in the community of doctors or engineers, and for us, obviously, community of filmmakers. That's why I started actually enjoying kind of the journey of, filmmaking, cinematography, etc., because I didn't have to think about belonging. I felt like I belonged, that was a good thing. And I think further to that, the cinematographers are a very unique bunch, because I got a lot of help in every way from fellow cinematographers once I got to know a few people. And I think we generally like to share our knowledge, our contacts and all of that. And for some reason, we really like to gravitate to other cinematographers and kind of like create even more of a community. And that's what I'm living to this day. That's what I really like about, especially here in Canada, in Toronto. I guess Canada in general. We are really helpful, I think. We don't compete with each other. I never felt that. I think we just help with whoever needs help in any way, and that's because we're having fun talking about cinematography. Having fun, not just like exploring the possibilities of cinematography, and that community, kind of really lives for that. Television is unique because cinematographers on television shows, big television shows, are, and big or small, are kind of a constant that we kind of protect the filmmaking, we protect the cinema of whatever television show we're doing, and there's more than one of us. There's a community of cinematographers that basically does almost every show. So at least two, but often like, even five, like we did on quite a few shows that I did. And we become the gatekeepers of, what the shows look, but also what the shows, feel, how we protect that story, how far we go to protect the story and our show. So it has a constant, so it feels like one movie in 12 parts or whatever it is, 8 parts, it doesn't matter. And to achieve that, cinematographers come together and constantly talk about it and do something about it by consulting each other, by talking about new methods, ideas, etc. And that never happens on a movie because a movie has one cinematographer. While that's a different journey, a journey of 5 cinematographers trying to make a movie that feels the same, yet is shot by 5 different people, is super exciting and actually like a grand achievement when that happens. So that's what I'm always excited about. But I tried, once we started doing, shows that of, a bigger size, etc. I always tried to kind of implement that feeling of, okay, if you hire me as your cinematographer, the showrunner does, then how do I become a person that's trusted to also hire everybody around in order for the consistency of the image to be present and the style. And once we started doing that, then the community that I belonged to kind of became a community that kind of rolled. We rolled together to achieve these things for various shows, and I enjoyed that probably the most because we kind of mentored each other into an entity that helped shows feel a certain way, look a certain way, and there was many of us doing it. And I think that's like as unique as it gets, because you cannot do that on a movie, but you can do it on a television show where you're allowed and where somebody sees the potential and how that can benefit their show. I think my main vehicles of networking and meeting people was festivals. I went to a lot of festivals, obviously including TIFF and around the world with short films or feature films later, etc. And meeting my like-minded people and seeing like people from varied backgrounds and people from like varied interests. I started to have another kind of layer to the community of filmmakers that I knew, and that helped me a lot. And then eventually, for all cinematographers, I think we have to get to a point where we get an agent, right? And that was a thing. That's not easy. You just have to be, I think, persistent, and also once you get rejected, it doesn't mean that you're going to be rejected again in 6 months, because you're going to show them the next thing you do, and that's going to be better, and they're going to like it, and all of that. So I think I often say this to young people. I can't believe I sounded like an old man right now. But I often say that being stubborn is very important. And stubborn in a good way, stubborn where you see that people are gonna be receptive to what you're offering, not being stubborn and like kind of going through a brick wall, but being stubborn in a sense of making sure that you're persistent and that what you want to do is like the main goal is to get to a point where you can do things that that are your goal, you know. So those are important things because there's various ways to get there, and I think people should also, in my opinion, like choose a little bit of what they're going after. So like if you're shooting commercials and documentaries and, you know, long form, like I don't know if you can do all of, like if you can concentrate on all of that, because the community becomes a little too big. Like you got narrow it down and say my interest is to shoot long format, then that's kind of the goal that you keep in mind. Well, I say that everybody can make it for a very particular reason, because I always thought it was impossible. Like I sit here now and I probably don't give that vibe, but because, you know, I've obviously done stuff, but while I was on that journey, I absolutely thought it was impossible. This industry almost makes it, achievements and working in our industry are almost set up as an impossible, like, giant mountain that you can never climb. And along the way, kind of everything reminds you of that. And that's why I talk about stubbornness, being stubborn to say, no, somebody climbed this mountain, I'm going to climb this mountain. And it's important to take the failures and just kind of roll. And that's easy for me to say now, but it was not easy for me either. So don't, like, hard is a necessity. It's a hard industry to make it in. But what I hope that people see on our sets, and I get that feedback, is how a cinematographer approaches her or his art, but also how they get to do what they want to do, how they behave as a cinematographer, how they value cinematography and filmmaking is super important, because that's how people then see that cinematographer and cinematography in general. Cinematography is a driving force behind, you know, a lot of the things we see, because, you know, we celebrate filmmaking, but to achieve that, filmmaking, cinematography has a very, very large component of why something is great. So I often joke, and I always start with that, is that without the camera, you take the camera away, you have absolutely nothing. You don't have a film. You have zero, like you don't have you don't have an image. So I like to break down things to absolute. So if you take that camera away, you have nothing. Now put that camera back, and now what do we need? We need to light something to see it, and that light done in a way that supports the story and in a dramatic way evokes emotion, etc. And light, without, and I often say this as well, without light there is no life, and without light there is also no filmmaking. Together with the camera, we're very essential, and we also have this huge responsibility as an essential element of cinema, without which cinema doesn't exist. Because there are other elements of cinema that you can take away, you still have some version of cinema. Without cinematography, you really don't have any version of cinema. So we need to be responsible how we approach that, because it's such a big deal, and we also need to understand the importance of our job. And that's what I hope that the mentees always get. And we talk about it a lot, and I try to do it by example. That's how I behave on set. I think the responsibility to the story, to everybody else, to the final product is a huge deal, and I take it extremely seriously. So I hope they do as well, and they see, you know, how that results itself. So people often say, and this is going to be unpopular, people often say that you enter each project, and every project is a completely new process where you give it a new look, etc. And I do believe that it's actually quite the opposite. I think that you appropriate yourself to the new film, television series that you do, but you cannot change yourself. You're still reacting to things the way you react. So you react to that story, and you're applying yourself to that story, that film, the way you see fit. But I think you're gonna find a lot of always similarities to what a cinematographer does during their journey in their career. So I do believe that when a cinematographer is hired, they're hired for their particular ability, style, etc. That hopefully people who hire them recognize to fit really well with their film or their television show. And I keep that in mind. Like I often remind people of what I bring. Not in the sense of like, I bring this, you should be grateful. I'm saying I bring this and I think this way. Does that fit? And I do it in the interview. I actually think that the most important thing in the world is to be extremely honest. And honest in a good way, meaning that you mean well when you tell people, this is how I intend to do this, and this is what I think. And then they'll give you something, and you'll obviously modify your way through, based on what they're saying. But I think it's very important to not just accept something that you don't disagree with based on the script you read, because then you're lying to yourself, but you're also lying to them. They're not getting who they think they're getting, So after that initial thing, after you get and like you sign on to a project, I think you continue the same idea. And then for me, I like soft light. I think soft light is an expression of like the darkness of an image that is lit softly or with hard light can be modified and used in different ways. But I don't like hard light hitting people's faces, etc. So I think my approach is always to try to find the softest light I can, closest to people. And I often say that to designers that they light the room, and I'll ask for a bunch of practicals that edge the room or whatever it is, and then I just light the people, and I say, well, this is the simplest thing in the world. That's what we do. I light the people, you light the rooms, then we go and have a drink. But while that sounds simple, it actually, like, I try to dissect everything and bring it to that point. How can I do it with a single source, and how can I get the environments to do what they're doing, because we chose them for a reason. So I believe in extreme preparation. I believe that we choose locations and see how they work for us, and then really let them work for us. I often like, sometimes we'll go to a location and it's going to be a wine store. And then we go, yeah, this is good, but somebody says, but do we have to have all the wine bottles? So it's like, no, we're in the wrong location. We find a location that really works for us on every level, and then on the lighting level, the image level, we try to simplify it so its essence kind of speaks for itself, and we just kind of supplement and light the people. And I really like to do that. If I could just put one 8x magic cloth and with a sky panel behind it, that's what I'd like to do. Recently, I was talking to the show that and they wanted to see if they asked if I would be okay with a documentary approach, meaning that everybody goes anywhere and the camera just follows them, which is fine. But what I said to them is that they're talking to the wrong guy. Not because I don't like that, but because I don't know if I know how to do it. And I don't know if in my body of work they could actually find anything that looks like that. At which point they offered me the job because I was super honest, and they actually didn't think that was their approach. They just wanted to say, because a lot of people will say, yeah, that's what we'll do, and then won't do it. I believe in saying what you're going to do and not, and be honest about it. I didn't think the script, would fit actually that request, and I think that's very important. Like, how much you let go is how much we all agree to let go. Do we want an image that is gritty and documentary-like, then we look for that, and that's appropriate for, and then we take that constant and take it and carry it. I am more than good with that. But if we want people to look really pretty and super soft and feel like models, and we want a documentary approach, that's an extreme, but nobody would say that, but something like that, then I have to say that I don't know how to do that, and I don't think that's actually that those two styles marry each other. And I think it's important for us to guide people to the appropriate style of what we think the story is, in accordance to what they think their movie wants to be. Well, you try never to be pressured by time, but that's a thing that we all get into eventually, losing the light or whatever. I think it comes with experience a little bit, where you, as a cinematographer, know. My dad always told me that nobody's going to remember the circumstances of losing the light and we only have 5 minutes, but they're going to look at the dailies tomorrow, because he was shooting film. Everybody's going to look at the dailies and go, oh my God, she doesn't, or he or she doesn't look good. And that's going to be on the cinematographer, because everybody's going to forget that you had 3 minutes to light that, right? So I think judging things properly, but judging them not at that moment of chaos and war zone moment, you actually try to prevent that from happening, at the beginning of the day, or 10 days before that, or whatever. So I think the planning of where you are, when you are there, and then adjusting, and then communicating with production, with the ADs and everything, so everything can be adjusted. That comes with experience. Like you find even the biggest, most outrageous thing you ask for is not that outrageous if there's a good reason for it. And everybody will see that good reason when you present it in a very honest way. So I try to do that. I try to still make an appropriate image, whatever we like, but not kind of give up on the image because we don't have time. Because once you do that, it will happen a lot of times, But you can also find a way to just say, if we turn this a little bit, we can shoot right now, and you save time. You'll always have to think about the good of the movie, of the whole project, and find ways within what you need to do to get there. I just want to tell you this. For every project, I write what we call, and it's a pompous name on purpose, what we call a visual manifesto. So this visual manifesto, during our prep, becomes a melange of images and thoughts, etc., that we all kind of talk about, the designer, the director, the producers, the DPs. And then I kind of put it into a thing, and I try to make a cohesive document, and then we kind of all work on that document until it filters out to a document that we send to everybody. So now directors, revolve on television shows. We send that to everybody, and as they come, they read it. And they go, oh my God, this is cool, this is what you're doing, and I see how you're doing because I saw episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever. And, then they'll recognize something and go, I want to do something that's a little different for this one scene, but it's based already on what's there, and it also can contrast it. So we only use, wide lenses close, whatever, on a show, let's say. And then they go, but this one scene I think we should do with long lens. All of a sudden it all works because it comes from something that's already prepared. And that's key, how do you prepare something so you can change it? The thing to do, again, is, and this is all difficult. We've all been there, where when we did smaller things, that's where time becomes even more of an issue. But if you are with your good friend who's directing a short film, then you'll do anything to help them, but you just have to kind of, they have to also know that you are there for the entire, thing. So that's why, you kind of grow with the size of the projects grows, and you grow your ability to change things with it, right? So on a small project with your friend, you go, hey, this actor should sit over there. That's actually much easier to say than to a big star, right? So they go, yeah, I'll sit there, right? Or they'll say, I can't sit there because of this and this. But you go, but can you spin a little bit? And they'll say yes, right? Whatever it is. So that's that. And then you come to a level where it's the big stars, etc., and a director who's done 200, big episodic shows and whatever. Then you go to them and you know that they've all been there. They know what you're considering or some stuff that you're considering. So then you know that you have all of that behind you and that you've done a lot. So now you go, okay, same thing. Can you sit there? If you can't sit there, can you spin a little bit? So it kind of grows with you, right? But you have giving it up. You gave up on your director when you give up just as much as you gave up on you, right? Or the producing director, or on the designer, on the actor. You gave up on all of them when you give up. So how do you not give up? You have to find that as a person. Like that's a personality thing. Like how do you not give up? I think it's very important to constantly question yourself and kind of question what you're doing, and if that's the right thing or not the right thing, but if there's another way, if there's where you draw conclusions that what you're doing is good, and sometimes you draw a conclusion where you can actually be be more open about certain things, or change an approach to lighting or framing or lenses or whatever. But I think we all eventually do feel a little stuck in, let's say, a genre, because that's a thing that happens a lot. Where if you do sci-fi, then the next show is sci-fi, and the next show is sci-fi, because if somebody thinks you did a good job, then they'll call you for that. And you don't think that's a problem until you're kind of in that world, and now you're somewhat established. So now you're like, okay, well, I never get to interview for a drama. So then you got to do something about it, because the moment you think about that, that's the moment when you realize that you're typecast in a way, So I have gone through that a lot, and I constantly go through that to I think I spend most of my time thinking about cinematography and filming in general by questioning everything I do. And I don't do that to drive myself nuts, and I don't do that to, even though I can, but I don't do that to ruin things that are good, but I do it because I want to see what other possibilities are there, because I learn from other cinematographers in the world, but also I learn from the community of cinematographers, where we constantly bounce ideas with Brendan Stacy, with Jeremy, with David Green, with John Joffin, with Catherine Lutz, with all these guys. We find ways to get together, be it like a DP dinner, official or unofficial, or we do the CSC awards, and where we watch together and then talk about the entries or whatever. But that's where you filter out and go, you say like, okay, I had to do this thing and I couldn't figure out the location was this and that. And then I remember Catherine Lutz once, I always tell this story because she doesn't probably think much of it, but I said I had to shoot something in front light for the first time, and she said, it's fine, just relax. It looks fine, when the sun, and she was right. It looked fine. It was not the high sun, it was low and all of that. But you learn that other people go, and that's what I want to say. You learn that other people go through similar thought process and similar issues or similar ideas. And then when you bounce it off them, you quickly learn something, and everything crystallizes very quickly. That's why I encourage cinematographers are good about talking about their thoughts and their craft and their art. We should do it. We should talk all the time. And I think young cinematographers should talk to their peers a lot, because you learn a lot. And then try to sneak on your fellow cinematographers' sets and just stand there for a second and go. Because I always do that. When Jeremy was doing Titans with us, I would go to his set. I remember once going to a set, and they put the camera in this weird inside the wall, and I was like, how is he gonna? And then this light that he put just above, and I think he pixel mapped just the side of it or something like that. I was like, I would have never figured that out in a million years. You put a gun to my head and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't know how to do that. And he did it. But that's gold. You learn something. Like Brendan Stacy, I don't think I've ever stepped on his set or David Green's set where I didn't go, oh my God, that's how you do that. Okay, go, like write that down, or remember it for forever. So that is amazing, and everybody's happy to talk about it.